Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Richard Torres has advanced to 9-0 as he continues his march through the prospect phase of his career, defeating Don Haynesworth inside a round, and this was on a top-ranked card in the United States, which was headlined by Liam Wilson and Oscar Valdez. So this was all over pretty lickety split, but it wasn't necessarily the sort of brash Torres that we've seen in some other fights, with him just coming headlong in, trying to sort of swarm his man. He did actually take his time. First minute or so, bit of a feeling out process. After that, started to find his range, started to actually connect with some nice body shots to Haynesworth's more than ample midriff. And also one of the other things we saw in this fight was using his feet a bit more, stepping around, creating some angles and using the feet to good effect. But it was two big left hands that started the rot. Haynesworth discombobulated, backs off, and at that point Torres knew that it was his time. He was all over him, swarms him. The referee breaks him up as Haynesworth holds on desperately. But it was all over pretty quickly after that. It couldn't avoid just shots coming in from all angles. The right hook, a couple of very nice ones landed, and pretty much Haynesworth unable to really defend himself effectively, forcing the referee to jump in. As I say, Torres goes to 9-0. And he said ahead of the fight that what he was looking to do, he wasn't focused on long-term goals, just short-term goals, what was in front of him, but he also wanted to focus just on getting better every single time. And I think there were a few signs in this fight that Torres has continued to work on the footwork, which obviously at a certain level against much bigger opponents, bigger punchers, guys who may be a little bit sort of treading in molasses and not as mobile, but definitely big punchers who've got a height and reach advantage over him, footwork will be key. So it's good to see him, putting in some dedication into improving the craft, continually trying to get better. So can't really take too much from this. The commentators were trying to say because he stopped Haynesworth in a round that it meant something, because Zhang Jilei and others had stopped Haynesworth in the past and taken a longer time. But at this point, Haynesworth is 41 years old. This was his 9th defeat, and he had been stopped before. I mean, I remember watching Haynesworth 5 or 6 years ago against Zhang Jilei. Also, there were some other guys like Guido Vianello, who also was in the top ranked stable. He actually stopped him in a round in 2020. So, I mean, I don't really think you can take too much from it, except to say that this was the first fight of 2024 for Richard Torres after his fight with Curtis Harper, where he went into the 8th round, finally got the stoppage in the 8th round. But this was a case where, I think it was pretty safe matchmaking for his first fight of the year. There wasn't too much horror in what Don Haynesworth was bringing to the table here. Not a huge puncher, but, he can let his hands go and, keep you honest, but he was woefully overmatched here. But I don't mind some of these fights, especially after that last one against Harper, because he did have a bit of a cut, took a little bit of time before he's come back here at the end of March 2024, first fight for the year, because this fight was mid-bill. It wasn't co-main event, so too often sometimes they're prospects like Torres who are much vaunted, right near the top of the bill with these sort of dreadful opponents, and it's almost disrespectful to the fans because they're terrible fights. They've got to balance the opponents versus what fans actually want to see. So that was a much deeper card, so he was pushed further down. And in that respect, I don't mind this fight because I don't want to say it was a tune-up, but it was a continuation of the prospect phase. But in the next 6 months to a year, we are going to, I think, see a gradual progression with Torres and the opponents. To date, it's been much of a muchness up until Harper, who is a tough out. And if you're not good enough, he can expose you. Other fighters have been exposed before by Harper, who I guess most famously known for walking out of the ring against FAR Jugba after a second over a pay dispute. So this was what it was, 9-0. Good to see Torres back, and hopefully in against some much more durable journeyman for the rest of this year. He is 24 years old. There's a logjam in the heavyweight division at the upper end with some of what you would call the older champions and older contenders, probably only on the scene for another couple of years tops. So there is going to be a void that will need to be filled by the likes of younger up-and-coming heavyweights like Torres in time. So they just need to build him appropriately, and I don't think he needs to be pushed too fast. But they've got to get more durable guys where he can test himself. Incremental steps, I think, is the order of the day. I know that's not going to please everyone who want to see him in with, someone even in the comment section of this video will throw out some crazy matchup that he should be in against basically someone who's a contender in his next 1 or 2 fights. It's not going to happen. You have to be realistic. He needs time to grow and mature and get the rounds and the experience that he needs to get him where he needs to be in the next few years. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.